Today we're breaking down the brand new Candy Factory gameplay footage that was at Gamescom. Of course, before we get into the video, I would just like to say a quick thank you to the Bandai Namco team for being able to supply me with this footage. I greatly appreciate it, as you can imagine. And remember, if you enjoy Little Nightmares content, breakdowns or theories, make sure you hit subscribe, because we like to do that a lot on this channel. And of course, with Little Nightmares 3 coming, we're going to be doing it consistently. It also would really help out the channel, and I would really appreciate it. Anyway, shameless self-promotion out of the way, let's get into this breakdown video. So in the first shot we see the mirror and the mattress on the floor with an object hanging above the mattress, similar to something that we see in Little Nightmares 2. I did start a theory on this but never finished it, but it was touching the idea that this is basically a sort of way to alert whoever is lying on the mattress or occupying this room of the north wind. Now I know it seems very vague, but I probably should revisit this theory and go further in depth because it is quite interesting. Anyway, we see Lo transporting through the mirror and causing a bit of a ripple effect, again feeding into our theory that Lo has the ability to travel through the mirrors. It's actually Alone who breaks them. Lo comforts Alone after falling, again highlighting the sadness that is the friendship that is most likely going to end in tears, because we know that Little Nightmares handles friendships in a way you don't really expect. As the video pans out, we see a rat scurry along, and we can see at the end of the bed there is a type of item. To me it looks like a type of edible treat, and given that we're in the Candy Factory, I think that's a given. At this point the game changes from being a cutscene into gameplay, which is actually super smooth, and I really appreciate that transition. It looks great. You'll notice this area also looks very similar to that area in which Six wakes up in Little Nightmares 1. Anyway, we see the rat is trapped, and to me, I think this might be an indication of a sort of collectible, or something the player can interact with at least, and it's then logged in the game's progression. What will it lead to? I don't know per se, but maybe it's going to be a cryptic achievement as usual. In the next part we get introduced to the factory level, and the workers that are moved around like mindless drones, becoming a product of the nowhere themselves. I believe that the workers are a very interesting part of the Candy Factory, and I'm going to be doing a video on them and the guests and the viewers and all the residents of Little Nightmares. So if that does interest you, make sure you hit subscribe with the bell on. As we know, nothing in Little Nightmares is accidental, so I believe the workers are going to be a key part in going forward, not only for the story, I imagine for the gameplay mechanics too. But one other thing I find interesting in this footage is how the AI interacts and behaves within the environment it's currently in, and again, also the actions that they have to do on the player's command, but how they act like someone. For instance, here we saw Alone looking out, contemplating, thinking about what she's seeing, paying attention to her surroundings. There is such attention to detail here that this time they're no longer just an AI companion there to help you in certain scenes and moments. This time it really feels like they're alive and they're going through this traumatic experience with the player, and I think this is a really great addition. Of course they've begun this in Little Nightmares 2, but they've really built on it for Little Nightmares 3, so I'm very intrigued. In the next scene, we see something truly unsettling. We see Lo and Alone come into contact with another creature of the nowhere, a resident, a brand new resident. It looks to be that of a type of factory manager or some type of quality assurance role. Someone who oversees the production of the candy and the workers. I believe we get to see a little glimpse of her in the next scene in a portrait, but here we see that she is long, slender, and not forgetting an extra arm packed away. Perhaps because of her role as a factory manager, this is a visual representation of her having her hand in so many projects, or her hands in so many things, and thus the Nowhere has conjured this eerie and controlling creature, and again it sort of fits the role, I suppose. But we know from the trailer she actually has more than 3 arms, so how many arms can she produce? A worrying thought indeed. Supermassive Games have done a very good job with the lighting here, so much so that we cannot make out any of the visual or appearance of this creature, even with lighting tweaks and some edits. The characteristics are just absolutely hidden other than the silhouette, and that, I think, is really well done. It makes me wonder if they've done this on purpose, because she doesn't currently look the way she's portrayed in the portraits. In the next shot, we see the factory manager's portrait on the wall. Interestingly, if you have a keen eye, you might have already spotted a little connection to Little Nightmares 2, as the factory manager looks very similar to the one of the porcelain children from the school, but of course grown up. She seems to be holding something in her hand, and no doubt it's something to do with monitoring production and possibly target goals, once again highlighting her role as a factory manager. Also, something to note is that around her neck, she seems to have a similar charm to Lo. Perhaps this is just a necklace, but it looks awfully similar in design and colour. Anyway, moving on. As Lo and Alone move deeper into the factory, we also get to see some more portraits of the workers hanging on the wall. Again, these just look like normal factory workers. Perhaps they are being highlighted here as for their best work, or because they control certain parts of the factory, like assistant managers or line managers. But it looks like someone has recently lost that position. As we can see, there is a portrait missing. As Lo and Alone move forward, we can see the harrowing truth of how many portraits have been and gone, how many workers have lasted over time. It's almost like a graveyard, which is actually brilliant visual storytelling. There are also some very interesting portraits that have been covered up, and of course, I'm super interested to see what Supermassive Games are trying to hide. But at the moment, I cannot find anything. Also on that note, can we just take a moment to appreciate the team for the absolutely beautifully made environments? I love the tone of the Candy Factory, and not to mention, look at those reflections. Beautiful! Anyway, in the next scene, we see Lo and Alone falling down onto the production floor. I say this because the net above them, which they fell through, usually this is for health and safety, as you can imagine, to keep things from falling off the lines, or the belts, if you will. We also get to see some more of their friendship being highlighted again in the small cutscene, which is going to be a knife to the heart when they turn it around and rip it from us. Oh, and did we mention about all the sweets on the floor? Mountains of sweets? And yet I don't think they taste nice at all, especially if they are what I think they're made of. Oh dear. After this, we see Lo transporting a light source to another door, all while avoiding these little beetle types creatures. These are different from the ones that fly in the necropolis, because of course the ones that are in the necropolis are called Hercule beetles. In the next scene, we see Lo and Alone walking across a pipe. Behind them, we can see the factory and its workers at the job in hand. We see they are pouring this mixture, and I'm pretty certain it's going to be organic mixture to say the least, into a mold, which is then imprinting the shape of the sweets. And on this line in particular that's closer to us, we can see they are printing or molding the lollipop sweet. I think for maximum efficiency, the factory manager has the workers trapped into their positions, hanging them from the ceiling, making them fully efficient for their jobs, so they can't move or, run away, because from what it looks like, you are worked to death here. Something interesting as well is the amount of use of the lolly candy, and of course, I believe this is going to be the start of linking the Lollipop Kid story from the comics, because we saw in the files in Little Nightmares 2 that it looked like there was an intended sort of DLC to follow up the comics. And again, this would explain where the Lollipop Kid gets the lollipop, and you could theorize possibly that the bed we see at the start of the factory is that of the Lollipop Kid. Again, theory, not much evidence, so you could actually class that as speculation until I do the video to then discuss this. So again, if that's interesting to you, make sure you hit subscribe. But if you can't wait for that theory, I have a theory that might tie you over. Gemini, my friend, has done a fantastic theory on this. He talks about the factory before it was actually called the Candy Factory. So if that piques your interest, I will link it in the description. Obviously you can see it on the screen now, but go check it out. It's really interesting, and don't forget to subscribe to him too. Then, of course, we see Lowen alone traveling through the flood of candy. This looks to be the end of the line for the factory, where all the sweets end up merging and coming together to be packaged, except they don't get packaged, they just get stored. And not in the health and safety way you expect, they just get thrown and mounted over each other. One thing I do find interesting is that one of the packages and one of the boxes has the symbol that we are all familiar with in the Nowhere, and again it's showing up here too. And then of course the camera pans further out, showing us the massive valley of sweets and more sweets being added to it. So there we have it. That is my brief breakdown of the brand new Candy Factory gameplay footage. I am super pumped for Little Nightmares 3 and all that awaits us. The quality of Little Nightmares 3 is looking absolutely stunning, and the game is looking even more creepier than before. But with that being said, let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know if I've missed anything or if you have any theories to share. Remember, if you've enjoyed this content and want to see more, make sure you hit subscribe, as it really supports me in the channel, and we're trying to hit 100k before we get Little Nightmares 3, so help me out with that. But with that being said, have a lovely morning, day or night wherever you are in the world. Stay safe, and I'll see you all in the next theory video. Bye!